So Die Hard was released on Christmas. What the fuck? July 12th?
Sure.
Okay, Die Hard was released in the dead of summer of 1988.
Now, one thing about that year, film released around that time were Cocktail, Monkey Shines,
The Pussy Juice Cocktail.
Caddyshack 2, Arthur 2, On the Rocks, Short Circuit 2, as we call it in the hood, Johnny 10.
A lot of number 2s that month.
Surely was. Big Top Pee-wee, means so much different now as an adult. Midnight Run, A Fish Called Wanda, The Deadpool, not for my MCU fans before Ryan Reynolds. Get off my lawn.
Yeah.
License to Drive, and I didn't realize that The Expendables, he didn't realize that The Expendables was a remake, but apparently it is because the original was released in July of 1988.
Die Hard is based on the novel by Roderick Thorpe. This was his second book to be adapted for film, the first one being The Detective, which is actually kind of like a Die Hard in the novel is kind of a sequel to The Detective starring Frank Sinatra, which was released 20 years prior in 1968. The screenplay was written by Jeb Stewart, not that Jeb Stewart, and Stephen E. D'Souza. D'Souza would go on to write Die Hard 2. He actually wrote the first 48 hours in 1982, and Stewart would take that mantle writing another 48 hours in 1990. Stewart also wrote The Fugitive and Fire Down Below with Steven Seagal. And after seemingly taking a decade-long sabbatical from 2010 to 2020, he returned on the TV miniseries The Liberator and is the creator of the TV series Vikings Valhalla, currently in post-production to be released in 2022. D'Souza followed Die Hard up with the 1990 atrocious sequel to the beloved Jim Belushi classic K-9, K-9000.
Now, he'd go on to write the 1994 live-action Flintstones movie. He'd worked with Eddie again, writing Beverly Hills Cop 3. He also penned Street Fighter, which he also directed. Let's not forget Sylvester Stallone in Judge Dredd. And he also wrote the screenplays for the Schwarzenegger classics, Commando, The Running Man. A few years before, if I'm not mistaken, he did all that a few years before working on Die Hard. And last but not least, his last credit to date was in 2012.
Die Hard was directed by John McTiernan, which there is a very complicated and devastating story that follows John McTiernan's personal life that we will not be getting into during this episode. You can look it up if you're interested. I don't want to leave it vague like that and put the implication out there accidentally about something worse than actually happened. So I'll just say it had nothing to do with children or or anything like that. Nothing to do with any of that. But a very interesting story. Something we're not going to get into today because there's way too much to get into about Die Hard. Look that up on the Google if you are interested in finding out more about that story. But let's talk about some of the great films that John McTiernan has made.
In 1987, Predator, just 1 year before Die Hard.
The Hunt for Red October.
Gotta love it. Last Action Hero.
And he'd returned to the Die Hard franchise in 1995 with my second favorite Die Hard film, With a Vengeance.
Sunshine City! He also did Thomas Crown Affair.
And directed a magnificent sexual scene between Pierce Brosnan and Rene Russo.
Is that the name of the film? The delicious scene between Pierce Brosnan and Rachel.
It should have been. More people probably would have went and seen it. The 13th Warrior.
Rollerball.
And Basic, which a portion of that production actually took place right here in Samuel Jacksonville, Florida.
You better know it. Now, in 2003 is when all the bullshit kind of came ahead, and McTiernan has been trying to get back to doing what he loves and what he's clearly gifted at pretty much ever since. He has one film that he's been sitting in pre-production on for quite a while with no updates. Now, beyond that, he's directed some promotional short films for the game Ghost Recon Wildlands in 2017.
McTiernan actually turned Die Hard down several times before accepting the job. He thought it was too nasty. When he came on, he's the one that's responsible for the lighter tone that we see in the final product.
Now, in case you've been living under a rock on planet Earth, Venus, Saturn, Neptune, or wherever, Die Hard stars Bruce Willis as John McClane,
Alan Rickman as Hans Gruber,
Bonnie Bedelia as Holly Gennaro McClane,
Mr. Reginald Bell Johnson as Sergeant Al Powell,
Paul Mess with the Bull and You Get the Horns Gleason, Breakfast Club reference, Dwayne T. Robinson,
and Devara White, aka Day, aka Argyle, who will be joining us later on in this episode.
And let's not forget Andreas himself, as Tony. Also joining us in a bit, or should I say later on in this episode. Die Hard was in production from November of 1987 until March of 1988. It was filmed primarily at the Fox Plaza, specifically the 29th and 35th floors in Los Angeles, which they did have to get barricaded for some point in time due to people coming by.
On a budget of $28 million, it brought in a little over $600,000 during its opening weekend.
Yippee gotta pay, motherfucker!
Thankfully, it caught on and now boasts a worldwide gross of over $140 million. I know the low opening weekend number is the result of a spread out limited theatrical release. It premiered in Westwood, California on July 12th and then opened in limited theaters on July 15th to be expanded on at the end of July. It was releasing in different places clear until Christmas that year. El Salvador probably had the most optimum timing with it premiering there on December 25th.
Now remember, it didn't actually hit the UK and Japan until early 89. It finally made its way to Czechoslovakia in 1991 and eventually happened in Romania in 1993. God damn. So there are parts of the world that would rightfully call Die Hard a 90s film, but we know better.
10 things you didn't know about Die Hard,
There could have been 100, but we narrowed it down, of course, till 10. Dave, take us away with number 10. Does it have my letter next to it?
That's you.
I figured, you fucker. Ho, ho, ho. Number 10. In 2018, 20th Century Fox formally admitted that Die Hard was, and always will be a Christmas movie after stating that it has been the greatest Christmas story ever told. In a trailer created to mark the 30th anniversary of the film's release, thus ending the much debate over 3 decades.
This is their idea of Christmas. I gotta be there for New Year's.
And I love that they refer to it as that because that's a dig on Jesus.
What's that mean?
To say that Die Hard is the greatest Christmas story ever told. Number 9, alternative titles. How about some alternative titles? You're gonna fucking love this.
Go for it.
All right. In Spain, Die Hard was known as Crystal Jungle. These will get progressively more ridiculous as we go, and they are all real. In Poland, it was The Glass Trap.
The Pipe.
In Portugal, it's Skyscraper Heist. Sounds like a movie that The Rock would be in.
Or Liam Neeson.
Yes. Die Hard didn't translate well to other languages, coming out as things like, it is hard to kill him, or he dies slowly. In Finnish, it's only over my dead body.
I actually like that title. He dies slowly.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm gonna fuck everybody else, but he dies slowly. We gotta do something with that. Keep going.
The Hungarian title is Give Your Life Expensive. And the sequel was called Your Life is Even More Expensive, leading to part 3, Life is Always Expensive. And for me, those titles are the winner. They don't have anything to do with the movie, but they
resonate with my wallet.
Yeah. Patreon.com, TTFT show. In Serbia, Croatia, and Bosnia, it's Die Like a True Man or Die Manly. And there was a 1988 pirated VHS from that region that used the title Sell Your Skin at a High Price? What the fuck?
Sounds like Epidermis Games.
Yeah, that's on that note. There's
Yeah, but just okay. All right. Okay, so with that being said, number 8, inspirations. Ode to Joy. John McTiernan suggested Beethoven's Ode to Joy be the musical theme for the alleged terrorists anyway. Die Hard's composer, Michael Kamen, thought it was sacrilegious to put Beethoven in an action film. He would not agree with, what's our guy who always likes to put the different music, Tarantino. He would definitely not agree with him. All right, McTiernan explained his inspiration was that Ode to Joy was used as the theme for the ultra-violence in A Clockwork Orange. Kamen, being a fan of Kubrick, conceded, making Die Hard the second film that Alexander Godunov would star in that ended with the ditty. Damn it, man. Fuck you. I'm starting this one over. Fuck you.
I'll be missing.
Fuck you. All right, 3, 2, 1. Watch me rock this bitch. Ode to Joy. John McTiernan suggested Beethoven's Ode to Joy be the musical theme for the terrorists, alleged terrorists, that is. Die Hard's composer, Michael Kamen, thought it was sacrilegious to put Beethoven in an action film. McTiernan explained his inspiration was that Ode to Joy was used as the theme for the ultra-violence in A Clockwork Orange. Kamen, being a fan of Kubrick, conceded making Die Hard the second film that Alexander Godunov would star in that ended with that ditty itself, the first being The Money Pit, released just a year prior.
A late December Night's Nightmare. The book and the original script had the events in the story actually unfolding over the course of 3 days. John McTiernan drew inspiration from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream when making the call to have the film take place in a single night, which I think is a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like watching something transpire in real time, which added a whole other element to it.
Like Tenet?
Did that happen in real time?
No, I don't know what time that happened in. All right, John McCarbray. Bruce Willis drew inspiration from real-life police officers. Willis noticed that many of them relied on McCarbray's sense of humor to handle their difficult jobs. This was something that he factored into his performance as John McClane.
And daddy issues. Rumors have it that Die Hard author Roderick Thorpe drew inspiration from his father for the character of Hans Gruber. Sounds like a great guy.
Trust me.
Number 7, moonlighting. Bruce Willis was literally, pun intended, moonlighting during the making of Die Hard, shooting his television series, Moonlighting, simultaneously with the Die Hard production. The resulting exhaustion that overcame him is why we got more characters that became fleshed out, like Al Powell, Ellis, Argyle, and who can forget Thornburg.
Tell me you got that.
Of course, giving them more screen time, relieving Bruce of some of the weight of carrying them in the film, which I actually think worked better because they got to develop these characters.
Mm-hmm.
Number 6, fake feet for real flames, real ride. All right. In the scene where McClane runs through the shards of glass in his bare feet, if you look very closely, you'll notice that they look slightly off or abnormally large. Well, McClane was wearing special rubber shoes that were designed to look like his bare feet. However, they were not. So the feet were fake. But according to John McTiernan, a majority of the exterior shots of explosions were real. Full-scale kabooms getting set off on and around in the actual building. Another thing that was real, Bruce Willis was riding on top of that elevator.
For real.
Yes.
All right.
Kind of reminds you of the scene from Speed, but go ahead again.
Or the flip that and reverse it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, either way. I mean, yeah, definitely.
And I saw something also that there's at least one elevator sequence in every installment of the Die Hard franchise.
This is very true.
Number
Except
5.
What? I don't want to tell you because then you're going to say something. I'll say except the other one.
You talking about McClane? Let's go. Number 5, casting. Producer Joel Silver and director John McTiernan were confident that they found their Hans Gruber after attending a performance of the play Dangerous Liaisons, in which Alan Rickman played an evil antagonist. Die Hard would become Rickman's first film role, and he almost didn't accept it, not wanting his first role to be an action film villain. And to his credit, the menacing antagonist roles did seem to follow him through the majority of his career.
This is funny. I felt like I talked to some guy named Andreas who said, you'd be crazy to turn down your first role because you're playing a villain. Okay, Hans. All right, only a couple of the actors portraying the German terrorists or alleged terrorists were actually German, and a few more could handle speaking broken German.
Ironically enough, Bruce Willis, who is sneered at by the Germans for being all-American, is more German than most of the Germans. Alan Rickman, English. Alexander Godunov, Russian. Bruce Willis, born in West Germany, out of the vag of a German woman.
The beautiful part about that is in Germany, when they do their American dub part of it, they give all the German terrorists American names. So payback was on them, bitch.
Who said we were terrorists?
All right, Bonnie Bedelia.
Talking about playing both sides.
Oh, who?
Yeah. They're the bad guys. No, they're the bad guys.
But it's all green, baby. It's all green. Now, Bonnie Bedelia was cast as McClane's wife at the suggestion of Bruce Willis after seeing her in the 1983 film Greatest Year Ever, Heart Like a Wheel. Now, if you didn't know this, other considerations included Linda Hamilton, my favorite, still got it to this day. You can... Beetlejuice, Miss Gina Davis, Deborah Winger, Michelle Pfeiffer, Jamie Lee Curtis, Halloween, and Kirstie Alley, and Kelly McGillis.
Originally, Clint Eastwood actually owned the rights to the novel that Die Hard was based on. He planned to star in and direct the film in the early 80s, but eventually backed out to make the Deadpool.
Bobby De Niro was offered the role of McClane before Bruce Willis, but he turned it down. Now, Willis just turned down a role in Midnight Run, which ironically ended up going to Charles Grodin, opposite De Niro. Now, both films opened up the same weekend, if you did not know.
Nick Nolte was offered the role before Robert De Niro. Nolte was actually the first one offered the role of McClane, and other considerations of the role of McClane included literally every actor available except for Bruce Willis: Richard Gere, Al Pacino, Burt Reynolds, Paul Newman, Sylvester Stallone, Harrison Ford, Tom Berenger, John Travolta, Mel Gibson, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Charles Bronson, Don Johnson, Richard Dean Anderson, and Michael Madsen. Schwarzenegger, Stallone, and Willis would actually go on to star together in The Expendables, again a remake of the film that was released the same month and year as Die Hard. So that's pretty neat. I would say I think that Michael Madsen would have, out of all of them, if it weren't going to be Bruce Willis, Michael Madsen could have pulled it off to an equal degree of success that Willis did.
Mickey Rourke ain't want none of that?
I don't think Mickey Rourke had the vulnerability to him.
Oh, okay. He does now.
Yeah. Due to a weird contractual ballyhoo, Frank Sinatra actually had to get first dibs for the role of John McClane. Again, like we said, the original movie that Die Hard, the novel, was a sequel of, starred Frank Sinatra. So that contractual ballyhoo was he had first dibs on that role if it was ever come around again. Turns out he was 73.
So technically that would have been an apropos title, Die Hard.
Yeah, he turned it down. I would love to see a 73-year-old Frank Sinatra making his way through the go ahead.
Now, a lot of the fans of the film may not know George Takai was all set to play the role of Takagi. He was so excited to do it. This goes to show you when you have fucked up representation, it can fuck your life up. McTiernan really wanted him, but Takai's agent got things mixed up. So I don't even think that's his agent anymore. But with that being said, Takai was not happy about that. But hey, it still went to a great guy that did a great job.
Yeah.
And of course, don't forget now, Sam Neill turned down the role of Hans. But we'll get into that later.
And number 4. Course correcting. In film production, much like in a great deal of many other things, a primary determinant factor in the success of your pursuits is your ability to adapt, evolve, and resolve when problems, accidents, or other curveballs will inevitably present themselves. And Die Hard, not unlike its protagonist, definitely took some hits and kept swinging. The scene where McClane falls down a shaft was actually the result of a mistake that the stuntman made. He was supposed to grab the first vent, but slipped and fell, so they kept the shot and grabbed an insert of Willis as McClane grabbing the next vent down as he was falling.
A lot of people may not know, screenplay tweaks were happening throughout the entire production, resulting in much of the film being improvised. Go figure, such a classic like that being improvised. Now, the hero of the film wasn't even fully fleshed out until nearly halfway through the production, with John McTiernan and Bruce Willis deciding that McClane would be a man who didn't like himself very much, but was doing the best he could in a bad situation.
Gotta love Bruce Willis.
You got to. Now, once again, rest in peace to the iconic legend himself. Mr. Alan Rickman injured his leg on the first day of shooting and was instructed not to put any weight on his leg for a week. So in the scenes where Gruber first runs into McClane, Rickman stood on one leg for most of the scene and actually wearing a leg brace underneath his pants.
I can do this on one leg. Technically, this mishap was turned into something productive for a future film, but Die Hard cinematographer Jan de Bont was trapped in a lift during the shooting of Die Hard. This would later inspire the opening scene of Speed, which de Bont also directed. And then, of course, there is the infamous invisible ambulance that serves as a good example for sometimes you just have to say fuck it, apply the best band-aid you can, and move on, because shit's gonna happen, but a film still has to get done.
What the fuck is going on?
All right, guys, random trivia. 17, and that's right, 17 tank tops at various stages of degradation were on hand for Bruce Willis throughout the production. Now, in 2007, Willis donated one of the shirts to the Smithsonian Museum.
On top of the 17 shirts, Bruce Willis, being practically unknown as a movie star and totally unheard of as an action lead, received a $5 million fee to star in Die Hard. This was beyond the norm of that time.
Yes, it was. Now, the scene where McClane and Gruber first meet was shot unrehearsed to contribute to the feeling of spontaneity between the actors. Now, there's a flip side to that coin, as Reginald VelJohnson and Bruce Willis, not unlike their characters in the film, did not meet until the end of the movie, which I'm sure we will be discussing later. Also, with that being said, John McClane has always been Bruce Willis's favorite role. Go figure.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, was voted number 96 out of the 100 greatest movie lines by Premiere Magazine in 2007. The line appears in all 5 Die Hard films, even the PG-13 cut of 2007's Live Free or Die Hard, with a gunshot being used to mask the fucker part. It does exist unmasked in the uncut version of the film, though. Fun fact, in Urdu, the line is translated to, "Here, eat this." Unfun fact, McTiernan thought the line should be yippee-ki-yay. In the edited TV version of the film, the famous line is changed to yippee-ki-yay, Melon Farmer.
And it was Melon Farmer. It was, and also a Mr. Falcon out there.
Mr. Falcon.
I promise it does. All right. The addresses and phone numbers shown on the LAPD dispatcher's computer for the Nakatomi Plaza management are the real numbers for the management of Fox Plaza. Bet you they won't do that again.
If you call them now, you'll reach Disney. The mouse is picking up.
The mouse is in charge of the house.
And the airplane in the opening scene is just being towed around in circles. Also kind of like
speed.
Yeah.
I already seen the airport.
Yeah. Oh, shout out to Beth Grant.
Die Hardly. In 2017, Die Hard was selected for the preservation of the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant.
And finally, number 1, Only Over My Dead Body. There were talks of an intriguing 6th installment to the franchise called McClane, based on the comic of the same name. The main piece of trivia that can be found on the project's IMDb page reads, "The story takes place on New Year's Eve, 1979. Although Bruce Willis will be playing present-day John McClane, as he is now around 60 and can't play his younger self unless they, pull a Irishman on him. I hope they don't.
Please don't.
The movie will therefore switch between scenes from 1979 and present day. Willis has already stated that this film is better than the first, and that's a lot to say. And that it's the first real sequel to Die Hard, which was the only really good one. Unfortunately, Fox owns Die Hard. Now Disney owns Fox, and the mouse said, "Only over my dead body," and it was finished.
Yeah.
Yep. And those are a lot of fucking facts about Die Hard. Eat that, movies that made us.